So what I've done so far is I've created a blank project, and I want to configure this blank project so that I can load it as a starting point next time I'm ready to start making a beat or whatever it is that I want to do. So before I do that, I want to understand what the different track machines can do, so then I understand how I want to configure my project. So again, each one of our 8 tracks can load a different one of the track machines. So the static machine is our first option. What a static machine does is it reads audio from the CF card. I have a compact flash card that's in here, and I have a ton of different samples and whatnot that I've saved to that compact flash card. If I want to read a sample directly from that card, I would load it into a static machine. The benefits of a static machine are that the samples can be very, very long, because again, it's reading it directly from the card and not from the RAM that is included in the Octatrack. So your samples can be up to 2 gigabytes in size. This is really, really good if you want to use the Octatrack to play backing tracks. For instance, let's say that you're part of a band and maybe you want some of the instrument parts to be playing from a machine. Maybe your bass player can't come, you need the bass line to be played from a machine. You can load that into a static machine and just stream the entire 3.5, 4, 5 minute file. So static machines are awesome. The next option that we have are flex machines. Now the main difference between flex machines and static machines, flex machines read audio from the RAM inside of the Octatrack. Now there's a limited amount of RAM, and also when you're sampling into the Octatrack, you sample into the RAM. So if you're reading samples from the RAM, you limit how much more memory that you have to sample with. So you want to be kind of careful about how you use the flex memory. One of the great things though about the flex machines is that there's certain tricks that you can do regarding, let's say like the sample start point. Maybe you have an LFO that is linked to that, that's moving at an extremely fast rate. If you do that with a flex machine, you probably won't have any problems. If you do that with a static machine, you might hear audio dropouts because you're basically manipulating the audio at a rate that's too fast for the CF card to catch up. So there are some benefits to using flex machines for our samples. And like I said, when you initially sample something into the Octatrack, it's sampled into RAM. It's sampled into a track buffer, a track recorder, and those track recorders are linked to flex machines. I'm bringing that up because as I set up my blank project, I'm probably going to want to choose flex machines as my starting point. But I'll get to that in a bit. The next option that we have are through machines. Through machines are great if you want to have audio being fed into the Octatrack's inputs, but run it through the Octatrack's effects. Each track has 2 effect slots, and that way you could utilize maybe, I don't know, bit reduction and then run that through a delay, or you could use the onboard compressor and then run that through, a spatializer or whatever you want to do. But you can use those effects directly on the input and just basically run it through a through machine. So that's a great tool right there. Below that, we have a neighbor machine. So what the neighbor machine will do is it'll take audio input from the preceding track, the track before it. So then that way, instead of just having the 2 effect blocks that come with one track, you could use this track and the 2 effect blocks there. And then if the next track is set up to be a neighbor machine, the audio from the previous track gets fed into this track, and then you have 2 more effects machines that you can use. So that way you can use the Octatrack as a very complex multi-effect processor. And this is another good way to take advantage of it. The last thing that we have here are the pickup machines, and I'm going to be spending the last part of the course discussing these. Pickup machines are great because it allows you to use the Octatrack like a looper. Basically, the track recorder that's available for the track can be used to not only record something, but then overdub on top of it as much as you want to. And you can use the pickup machines independent of the sequencer on the Octatrack. So you can basically record something, set your loop, and then have that be the master tempo for all the other things that you record. So pickup machines are extremely useful. Now, with all that said, I want to configure a blank template project. And like I said, if my goal is to basically grab some samples and be able to easily start to incorporate them into a beat, flex machines are probably going to be my best option. So I'm going to start with that. I will select yes. Now I'm going to make all of my tracks flex machines. So track 1 is selected. I'll hit track 2. I'm in my sample slot list. I'm going to move to the left. Now I'm looking at the machine types. I'm going to make this a flex machine. I'm just going to do this for all of my tracks. Boop, cool. Now before I leave this area, let me go back to track 1. I see at the top of the screen now it says machine flex, so I know it's a flex machine, and these are my sample slots here. Now I don't have any samples currently loaded, but if I press my up arrow, I see there's some slots above that first sample slot. These are the track buffers, the track recorders, and when you're sampling audio, when you're recording audio into the Octatrack, it records it into these record buffers, these track buffers. So what I want to do, again, for my blank template setup, Ideally, I like to start by recording some audio. So I'm going to make it so that not only are my 8 tracks flex machines, but I want my 8 tracks linked to these record buffers. The reason why is that when I sample something, on track 1, if I sample it directly into record buffer 1, I can immediately start to play it and manipulate it on this track. Now, I'll point out there's a reason why we don't want to just keep the stuff in the record buffer, but I'll get to that a little bit later. Again, I'm just setting this up as a template where I can easily start working on some things. So I'm going to assign track 1 to record buffer 1. I've selected that. I'll hit yes. It's confirmed. Track 2 will be record buffer 2. Track 3, record buffer 3. Track 4, record buffer 4. Track 5 will be record buffer 5. Track 6 is record buffer 6. Track 7 is record buffer 7. And track 8 will be record buffer 8. All right. So now all of my tracks are flex machines and they're all assigned to the appropriate track recorder. So now, again, when I sample something, I can immediately start to play with it, manipulate it, and that'll save me a lot of time. So what I want to do now is save this, and I want to save this and name it in a way where I know that it's a template that I have available to start with later. So I'm going to go to my project area, hit my project button here. I want to save my project, and I've already named it Mac Pro, but I want to know that this is a template. So I'm going to save it with a new name, actually. I'm going to save it to new. And I'm going to call this Mac Pro, I'll just call it Mac Pro template. So again, I'm going to hold function and I will name it. Template. There we go. So the idea is that when I want to start an idea from scratch and I know I want to start by utilizing samples, I have this as a template that I can load up and all my tracks are already properly configured so then I can start sampling. So far, so good.